Verse 14. Why did Abraham send them away with just a bottle of water and a little bread when he had the resources to see that all their needs were met? I wondered about that. Why would he send so little? He was a man of great resources, but he sent so little in their hands. I believe, as I meditated on that, it's because he was taking God at his word. He simply released Ishmael and Hagar into the sovereign hand of God. He trusted God to do them right. Sometimes we want to make every precaution. Sometimes we want to take every precaution so that we could take care of our loved ones. How much do we really trust God to take care of them? They are in a very desperate situation. But that's how life can be at times. There was pain. Hagar's heart is broken. She is sure Ishmael is going to die. Who would like to see a 17-year-old boy die in front of you because of no water, no food? She leaves him under a bush and goes away because she does not want to witness the death of her son. This was a critical situation. He was at the point of death. The Bible talks about a bow shot. That means she was just about 1,000 feet away, close by. She doesn't want to be right there to see him die in agony. Hagar leaves Ishmael there and goes off to cry. She found herself in a situation that she could not fix, nor could she escape from. It was impossible. Have you been there? Are you there right now? An impossible situation. And you wonder, where is God in all of this? How did we get into this in the first place? We didn't want this. We didn't want to be in this problem, but how did we get into it anyway? Have you been there? Most of us have. David found himself in a hopeless place and wanted to fly away, but he couldn't. He said, if I had the wings of a bird, I would want to. He didn't, so he had to face it. Most of us like to be in control of our lives. When we can't control it or fix it, we get very desperate. Of course, Hagar shouldn't have worried. She had the promise of God that he was going to make Ishmael the father of a great nation. Genesis 16. You see that in verses 10 and 11. He wasn't going to die out there in the wilderness. God made a promise. And remember that when God makes a promise, regardless of your situation, he will keep to his promise. He's not like man. God made a promise to be with you always. He will be with you always. And so, the fact is, sometimes life hurts. And sometimes it hurts real bad, and nobody you can really turn to. When it does, we want to run away from our problem and from our pain. What we fail to see is that our pain is a path God is using to fulfill the promises that he made for us and to us. If you can learn to really trust him, even when you can't trace him, he will grant his peace in your time of pain. In verses 16 and 17, we notice that there was a prayer. There was prayer. There's got to be prayer. If you've got a need right now, if you're in a kind of situation right now that has no meaning, no answers for you, there's got to be prayer. Submerge that situation with prayer. We don't know whether Hagar prayed or not, but we know that Ishmael certainly did. God heard him and moved to help him. By the way, the name Ishmael means God hears. God hears. Prayer is an ever-present source for the believer. We can run to him anytime, anywhere, for any purpose. He has promised to hear us and help us. Here's the truth, dear brothers and sisters. Problems are going to come your way, if it hasn't come already. When they do, they will come unwanted and unannounced. You won't know when it came and how it comes. When they come, they will hurt you deeply. When they come, you must not delay, but run to the Lord, and he will hear and he will help you. Don't run here, there, and everywhere. Run to the Lord. He may change the situation. More often, he will change you in that situation. Don't expect the situation at all times to change. He will change you so that you will handle the situation. The difference between Paul's attitude in trouble and our attitude in trouble is that we have not reached a place where we can openly welcome trouble. Paul welcomed trouble. He said, come right in, trouble. I've been waiting for you. I can handle you. God's given me the grace to handle you. And so, maybe we should be expectant of trouble, because the word tells us that we should be joyful when we face tribulations and problems. Why? It is part and parcel of our Christian walk and life. If the Lord is going to develop us into the image of Christ, which is why he saved us in the very first place, he will do so through the events in your life. He will send you exactly what is able to transform you into the person he saved you to be. And therefore, when problems come, know it's coming simply to transform you, to change you, to make you a better person. Yes, it was a time of harsh rejection. It was a time of hopeless reality. But it was also a time of hidden resources. In those harsh rejection, in that hopeless reality, God has a solution. God has something for you in it. So don't run. Don't run away from him, because then you'll be running away from the solution. Verses 17 to 21 tells us it was a time of hidden resources. When Hagar went through this time of terrible tragedy, she was enveloped by some very precious hidden resources that she didn't even see. Why? Because her problems were so big that she couldn't see God's resources right there. In your problem, God has the resources to take you out. But what happens? We major on our resources. We make our resources so big that we can't see God's answer to our problems. We need to now forget about negativity. People are saying something, we make that so big and forget what God is saying. What is God saying to you? That should be of utmost importance in our lives, not what people say. When Jesus wanted to know about himself, he didn't look to the people, because you'll get a mixed reaction from people. Some people will love you and some people will hate you. Some people will say good things and some people will say bad things. How do you measure that? There's no instrument to measure that. Jesus looked up. He wanted to hear what the Father said about him. And that's what carried him. And I believe that's what will carry us as well. And so God had his providence for Hagar in this situation. She was thrown out of her home, no fault of hers, and now she's in the wilderness. A child is about to die. She's got nothing else to hold on to. No family. She's far from home and family. What does she do? God had a plan for her in all of this. When I looked at Galatians chapter 4, in verses 21 to 31, I saw that Paul speaks of this particular episode as an illustration of salvation. Let's look at some points. Sarah is a picture of the grace of God. Hagar is a picture of the law of works. Isaac is a picture of faith. Ishmael is a picture of the flesh. And so the lesson in Galatians 4 is very clear. Grace and law are incompatible. They cannot come together. They cannot live together. They cannot be in agreement. And so are flesh and faith. If you walk by flesh and another walks by faith, you cannot reconcile that. It's either you walk by faith or flesh. You can't have both. Ishmael represented the efforts of the flesh, and he had to go so to the son of faith. Isaac might obtain his rightful place. Folks, the pain and suffering were both part of God's eternal plan. But in the short term and in the long term, God was using these events in the life of Abraham and Isaac. And I believe He's still using them to teach us about the plan to save sinners, to bring us to the place of transformation. The same is true for all of us. God has a plan, and sometimes it involves us walking through hard places, going through difficult situations. You know what He's doing. God is the author and finisher. He knows what He's doing. Until you walk through the valley, you cannot appreciate the mountaintops. And therefore you need to go through the valleys sometimes in your life. And when you go through the valleys, thank God, because soon it's going to be the mountaintops. 17, verse 17, we see God's presence. Sometimes we don't see it, we don't feel it, we don't experience it. Hagar didn't know it. God had been there the whole time. God had a promise with this boy. God had a promise for his life. And God was not going to abandon him. That's what we see in verse 17, the first part of 17. Doesn't he say to us all in Hebrews 13:5 that he will never leave you? Have you seen that scripture? He will never leave you. Why? He has a purpose for your life as well. And therefore, because of that purpose, He will not leave you. Because He has a plan for your life. You are men and women of destiny. He will not abandon you. Even when you go through the valley, He's watching. He's watching over you. And so don't you ever feel like you are abandoned by God. In the second part of verse 17, we see and we read of God's peace. First part is God's presence. And now we see God's peace. And oh, how we need God's peace in these difficult times. God called her by name. God knows your name. And so don't you feel like you are a number on God's big computer sheet. You are known by Him by name. Notice the contrast between verses 17 and verse 10. God was concerned about her problem. God spoke peace to her heart. And I believe this is what you need to hear and know today. God is speaking peace to your heart. No matter what you're going through, God's a God of peace. And He wants to bring peace to your heart. And then in verse 18, we see God's promise. You see, you will never see God's promise until you have God's presence and God's peace. Then only you will be able to see and understand God's promise. He may not make you a great nation, but He will take care of you. I don't know what promise He's made to you, but whatever promise He's made to you, He will keep to His word. You may not be the father of many nations, but He has a promise for you.